Paul Nyland, again at UATV English. Good afternoon, Mr. Nyland. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon to you. It's always a pleasure to be on the show, and thank you again for inviting me back.
Oh, so sweet. Thank you so very much. Let us call, the next question is, the first one, sorry, Transnistria and Russian blackmail. Well, I mean, we all understand. Well, the so-called Transnistria territory is a victim of Russian backers in local authorities who staged the artificial crisis. That much is clear. My question is, so what now? In terms of Transnistria and or Ukraine, what is going to happen?
So it is a really very pertinent question right now because this enclave that borders Ukraine and was carved out of Moldova, the independent country of Moldova, about 30 years ago. That region, because of Russia's all-out invasion of Ukraine, Ukraine is no longer transiting Russian gas, so therefore we are restricting Russia's possibilities to fund their war machine. And one of the outcomes of that is that there is an energy crisis in this area of Transnistria. What's going to be interesting to see is what resources are going to be provided and by whom to the people who still live in this region. And the indications are that the Moldovan authorities are prepared to provide utilities to their sovereign state. And in doing so, hopefully, what will happen is that Russia's grip on that piece of land that they've attempted to steal for decades will be weakened as well. And hopefully, with Transnistria returning to Moldova at some point, then also we'll have a look at what's happening in Georgia with Abkhazia and South Ossetia, which are also occupied since 2008 by Russia too.
Very favorable outcome, if you ask me, because Transnistria actually is Moldova. Again, if you're asking me, no one is asking, but it's just. But this is all about expectations. So let's talk about the expectations. And now the Ramstein is coming. Do you expect anything new out of what's to expect?
I don't know who's going to be there from the American side, but obviously it will be the last gathering in the current format because the next meeting of Ramstein, in whatever format that's going to take, whether that's being led by the United States or more by NATO, as has been discussed, it will be with different players. So we're going to learn more when the new Trump administration has been installed about who is going to be representing them, whether it's going to be if Marco Rubio is confirmed as Secretary of State, whether it would be him, whether it would be whoever the Defense Secretary is going to be. And then what results of that. So I think what we'll see in this meeting, I think we're going to see some backslapping, some congratulations for what they have accomplished in the last 30 months or so in their 29 gatherings. I think it is that's not unfair. They have in actual, I mean, literally, I mean, moved heaven and earth, right? The volume, the weight of ammunition that comes into Ukraine. They have literally moved heaven and earth for it. But you and I agree, totally not in the quantities that we have needed them or as fast as we have needed them. And then I think the second thing that we're going to see is I think there's going to be indications of how the pie chart is going to shift, like how the total volume of aid to Ukraine potentially is going to be or indicated potentially how that's going to be made up. So I think that will be one of the most important things to look out for. But yeah, a bit of a celebration and all the very best for the future. And like I say, pats on the back, right? And not undeserved. We're very grateful for what they have provided to Ukraine.
That much is true. Pie chart, I mean, American pie chart. Well, all right. Zelensky-Fridman in Kiev, interviewing Zelensky. I had a whole bunch of questions, but we're going to ask just only one question. What was the main message to you?
You can't just ask me one question about that because I just submitted 2 hours ago 1,250 words to my editor on this exact
Right.
interview. So I mean,
Go
I
on.
wanted to
Go
watch it.
on. Just
I wanted to watch it, obviously. But if you want to talk about the main message, I saw somebody comment yesterday that the host had lost control of the interview and that Zelensky was the consummate professional and blah, 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 in just leading him around by the nose was the expression. And I don't think that was very fair. That's the format of this long form interview. The guest is given an extended time to provide extended answers. And so the key takeaway really was everything that Zelensky said, everything that he managed to explain and to put complex issues into sensible comparisons that people are able to grasp hold of and understand. But what I wrote in my article is that the host didn't grasp it and the host didn't understand it because what Zelensky's talking about, what we're talking about, the people in Ukraine, we're talking about our lived experience. We are the people who have been
here we
subjected
go.
to this war. And so when somebody parachutes in from overseas and says, I've got this idea, I think you should do that. How about singing around, sitting around a campfire and playing guitar? There was an easy thing that I caught him out on his honesty about playing the guitar. He was saying that it took several months to interview the music producer Rick Rubin. He'd spent several months learning to play "Hurt" by Johnny Cash. But anybody who is a guitarist knows that's a 3-chord progression, and if you played guitar as he later claimed for decades, then you'd learn that song in minutes, not in months. So he's prone to embellishing. And he just comes to this from a very, very different perspective. But what I think the key takeaway is that Zelensky managed to highlight not only his ignorance, because you don't want to single out just that one person, right? It would be grossly unfair to do that. But not only his ignorance, but the ignorance of many Western commentators. And Zelensky has managed to do that. I mean, what he's really done he's turned what was his art form, his past career into
Right.
statecraft. How to deliver a message, and he did it time and time and time again. And
Hmm.
he did it on a platform and in a format that I think is going to be hugely beneficial, actually, in the big picture
I agree.
for people's understanding of
Hmm.
Ukraine and the conflict here and the realities. Like, so, for example, to pick one thing about the conversation, when Friedman was talking about a ceasefire as if like this is that's the holy grail, get a ceasefire,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Zelensky and Zelensky's like, for example, then that, and what's next? What's next is security guarantees, because without
Absolutely.
the security guarantees, you don't
Right.
actually have a ceasefire, right? So what Zelensky's masterfully done is explain like these are complicated issues and explained it into in a language that even somebody as ignorant about the causes and realities of this conflict as that host obviously is, even he could understand if he made more of an effort to do so.
This is exactly, I want to make exactly that point. Just a little bit of effort and interest, couple of phone calls, maybe coming to Kiev a little bit beforehand and asking questions, walking around, and then you are not coming up with the absolutely strange, to put it mildly, proposals like, let's get Zelensky, Trump, and Putin and negotiate peace. What are you talking about? But personally, do you believe, Mr. Nyland, that this, I don't know, trilateral formation is even possible in general?
Um, no, it's obviously not possible, and
Well, there we go.
it may be somebody's naive fantasy to
Yeah.
see those three people in a room together, but it's just not real. The level of, and this again, this is really the thing that I think that Zelensky managed to project so very well throughout the interview is the level of uh, hatred, detest, despisement, whatever word we want to use, that we here in Ukraine have for them, the aggressor. to the degree that I've switched, having always been a Russian speaker, I've switched to Ukrainian. I will just not do anything in this space. This is what people need to understand overseas. In this space, nobody likes to be reminded of the crimes of those monsters. And communicating in the language of them is exactly that. And so that's why many people have switched to Ukrainian, me being one of them. But that's what I'm saying. I think what Zelensky really managed to put across is just how much we despise them and know there will not be a trilateral meeting, and nor will there be actually, far more seriously. And I tweeted about this today. There was an article that's got a lot of traction. It is predominantly about we cannot trust Russia with a ceasefire. They'll come back again. But the opening premise of it is any deal negotiated between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, blah blah blah. And I said this is completely wrong. There will be no trilateral sit down with Trump and Putin and Zelensky. There will be no deal that is negotiated between Putin and Trump. There will be nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. You cannot propose a deal negotiated between two of without the inclusion of Ukraine. The idea to do so would be ludicrous.
Right. Well, and this is actually this is outrageous. The level of ignorance, of deliberate ignorance of hosts like Fridman that do not pay any effort to actually let's seal the deal. Let's negotiate peace. Well, let me come to your home. Let me ruin it. Let me burn it. Let me rape your wife and kill your children. Let's sit at the table and just negotiate what are the terms of a ceasefire. Why not? I mean, we're all grown-up people here, all right? So this is the whole message. And this is why some say that Holst lost control, Holst track. Maybe you never had it.
No, I didn't. I didn't hear. I did hear that the host lost control, and like I say, I disagree with it. It's the format as it is that you allow the guest a longer time to answer. It's a 3-hour show, and I'm not a big podcast guy because I don't have 3 hours normally. I mean, I made a point of watching this, obviously, but I haven't got 3 hours anyway. There was an interesting other element to the way that Zelensky responded as well, in that he used some colorful metaphors. He swore a couple of times, and that part that you've just said about, what about these people who've murdered your children? That was one of the times that Zelensky swore, and he said to him, he said, imagine the situation that somebody's children have been killed, and the father comes along and says, who did it? And the response is, well, it was that guy, but you can't touch him. And Zelensky says, are you going to do that? Or are you going to knock his effing block off anyway? He says, of course, that's what you're going to do. Of course, that's what you're going to do. But I'll also just challenge one little thing that you said as well, about ignorance and deliberate ignorance from the host. Ignorance, yes, that is the correct word. It means a lack of knowledge of something. Yes, he is ignorant. That's not an insult. That correctly describes him. Is it deliberate? This is what again, in the article that I've just written today, I'm trying to put across that it's not necessarily deliberate or nefarious.
Then what is it?
Or deliberately manipulative. It's because he has different experiences. He does not have our experiences. So is it deliberate ignorance, or is it just ignorance because of a different life?
Well, you don't have to be have a great empathy to get into the case a little bit deeper to understand it, or it's impossible, totally impossible for a Westerner to do that. But you prove exactly the opposite. You are here. You are a journalist who is in the case right to your ears and to your new beautiful haircut, and you know the thing. And he could ask you about that, what is going on, but he didn't. This is what I call a deliberate ignorance. He just doesn't want to do that. There's no need for that. He got his 3 or 4 or 5 million views, and that's it.
Yes, and very much. I mean, the number of views and his obvious personal desire for exposure and publicity and to be seen to be an important person, his own ego. I mean, I said, let's not personally attack the guy. He not only could have done more background and researched some more Ukrainian perspectives, but I'm led to believe that he actually did so, that he's been in Kiev several times before, that he's interviewed other important journalists, including the defense correspondent formerly the defense correspondent from the Kiev Independent, who I believe has something like 2 million followers or something like that. He interviewed him, and that interview was never published. So, I mean, he has come to at least portray that he's seeking different opinions, but they're not persuading him. His preconceived notions, which are rooted in the fact that he is Russian. I mean, he's a Russian person who has resided in various parts of the former Soviet Union, including in Moscow. That's what shapes his opinions and his thinking.
I take it.
It's
Right.
that exposure.
Okay. Thank you so very much. It is a very interesting topic. Maybe we talk about that again later on. But now let us just imagine it happened. I mean, a ceasefire. On more or less acceptable terms for Ukraine, it happened. And the vast majority of us Ukrainians say that Ukraine should treat it as a respite and respite only, and to be getting ready for next war with Russia. Can you please comment on that? Is that true?
Which is, yeah, of course it is. And that's exactly the premise of the article that I read today, that I just critiqued for having that Trump and Putin deal headline. And it's also exactly what President Zelensky said as well. Like, no, there isn't just a ceasefire. That is an element of what we have to work towards. And I say we as in jointly, us, Ukraine's allies, partners, the human rights lawyers who are working alongside the Ukrainian investigative journalists, and the people in The Hague who are the ones who are drawing up the arrest warrants. The steps to what is the required outcome, which is a holding and a just peace. The steps go through ceasefire. They include security guarantees. They include justice, and justice is fairness through the legal system. And in terms of compensation to Ukraine. All of these things have to be achieved before any kind of deal. There's no just a ceasefire and then we'll see. And that's again that's what Zelensky has very, very comprehensively just laid out in this interview. And again, it's a good. I think it's a good and positive thing in the long run for Ukraine that he was given an opportunity and a platform to do so.
I just couldn't agree more than I already did. And you know what? Great is the proper term when that actually I can find when talking to you. Your expertise is amazing, and your emotional involvement is absolutely charming. Did I already mention your haircut? Absolutely. So thank you so very much, Mr. Nyland, for being with us and for spending your time, money, and effort for Ukraine instead of some hosts that can't do that. You do that. You're doing a great job. Thank you so very much. We talk very much soon.
I look forward to coming back again, and I thank you for your kind compliments, including about my hair, which is unnecessary.
Right.
With regard to my knowledge, I've said it many times in interviews before. This is my home. This is what I care about, and I'll carry on being passionate.
Okay, I'm not going to say thank you again, but this is what I wanted to say. So I'm just going to thank you so very much.
Until the next time.
Until the next time. We talk. Goodbye. Well, that will be all for today. Thank you so very much for your time with us. My name is Henry Keane, and we are UATV English, an English-speaking Ukrainian state media source always in persuasion to deliver hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. Please like, share, and comment. Your voice indeed matters, as it in turn helps Ukrainian voice to be heard globally. So stay safe and tuned for more already tomorrow. Goodbye.